Tailor's scissor, used to cut fabric and thread. Iron, used to remove wrinkles and flatten the fabric. Ruler, used for taking straight measurements, like while adjusting your pattern.
A tape measure or measuring tape is a flexible ruler used to measure size or distance. It consists of a ribbon of cloth, plastic, fiberglass, or metal strip with linear measurement markings. It is a common measuring tool. A sewing machine needle is a specialized needle for use in a sewing machine. A sewing machine needle consists of a groove cut in the front of the shaft to allow the thread to lie more closely to the needle as it passes through the fabric. A pin cushion is a small step cushion, typically 3 to 5 cm or 1.2 to 2.0 in across, which is used in sewing to store pins or needles, with their heads protruding to take hold of them easily, collect them, and keep them organized.
Sewing threads are special kinds of yarns that are engineered and designed to pass through a sewing machine rapidly. They form efficient stitches without breaking or becoming distorted during the useful life of the product. The basic function of a thread is to deliver aesthetic and performance in stitches and seams. Thimble and threader. Thimble is a small cover that goes on the end of your finger to protect it from being pricked by a needle when hand sewing. Threader is a device for passing a thread through the needle and guides of a sewing machine and for cutting a spiral ridge on the outside of a screw or the inside of a hole. Seam ripper and tweezer. Seam ripper is a small sewing tool used for cutting and removing stitches. The most common form consists of a handle, shaft, and head. In some designs, one side of the fork tapers to a sharp point to allow easier insertion in tight stitching. Tweezer is a small instrument like a pair of pincers for plucking out hairs and picking up small objects.
Hand wheel. Hand wheel is used to sink the needle before you start a seam or to raise the needle once you have finished a seam. Stitch length dial. Stitch length dial is basically how long each stitch is sewn by your sewing machine.
Presser foot. A presser foot is an attachment used with sewing machines to hold the fabric down under the needle as it is sewn. Besides the basic presser foot for sewing straight stitching lines, you can fit most of the sewing machines with a number of different presser feet that do a lot other functions. Presser feet add different functionalities to your sewing machine so that it can accomplish much more than mere straight stitching. The additional benefit given by the presser feet can add a lot of ease to your sewing and save you a lot of time. Thread take-up lever. The take-up lever is located directly above the presser foot of a sewing machine. It's the part of the machine that pulls the thread from the spool to feed it through the machine and lifts the thread back up out of the cloth after a stitch has been made. Simply put, it's the part that goes up and down as you sew. Thread tension dial. By thread tension, we mean the amount of thread that can pass through the machine to create the stitch. The more thread in the stitch, then the looser the stitch. The less thread, then the tighter the stitch. Top thread tension is controlled by a dial on the machine's thread path.
Bobbin binder spindle. It holds the bobbin while winding the bobbin. The bobbin must be pushed toward this during the bobbin winding process. It is whether built in to the machine or a portable machine. Help to wind the thread on the bobbin. Bobbin winder stopper. When bobbin achieves its ideal limit, then bobbin winder stops the bobbin from winding. Stitch with dial is a K-factor with zigzag and decorative stitches. It moves the needle left and right, and it controls the length of the stitch. Shorter stitches for finer fabrics, longer for heavier fabrics. Remember to always use the correct presser foot when sewing a zigzag or decorative stitch to avoid breaking the needle.
Spool pin.
Spool pins are most often plastic or metal pins, approximately the width of a pencil and ranging from 2 to 4 inches in length. Their designs allows the spool of thread to spin freely. Spool pins can vary in several ways, including the direction in which they are pointed. Spool pins are most frequently located either on top of the machine or near the back, on the right-hand side. This arrangement allows the spool of thread to stay out of the machine's sewing mechanism and permits easy access for the machine user. If a machine has more than one spool pin, the machine can most likely utilize more than one needle simultaneously.
Power switch. Power switch means the off-on office of the sewing machine. Needle clamp screw. The needle clamp screw holds the needle in its actual place.
Pattern selector dial. Pattern selector dial used to make different stitching patterns, stitch with control, used to adjust stitch when often part of the pattern selector dial. The pattern selector dial is to set the symbol of the desired stitch pattern.
Fade dog. What is fade dog? Fade dog typically resembles 2 or 3 short, thin metal bars, crosscut with diagonal teeth, which move back and forth slot in sewing machine. It works with a presser foot to move the fabric by one stitch at a time, using a tooth-like component. Advance the fabric at the right speed and rate to create perfect stitches when the force of the fabric along by pulling it forward or pushing it. Needle plate. The needle plate is a metal plate that covers the bobbin casing and feed dogs. It is usually each with a seam allowance guide to help the operator keep seams straight while sewing. Reverse stitch lever. The reverse lever is the part of sewing machine that allows to make a stitch backward. And this part is one important function because it allows to make stronger stitches and firmer seams. This function is essential when stitching since it allows you to secure your stitch at the beginning. The reverse of stitch also necessary when finishing up a seam.
Bobbin cover. As the needle thread is pulled around bobbin case, it wraps around the bobbin thread and pulls it up through the needle plate. Bobbin cover for front-loading bobbins. You remove the storage compartment to reveal a flip-down cover. Bobbin cover release button. Button that slides to the right to remove bobbin cover plate and allow access bobbin or bobbin case. Bobbin winder thread guide. Guides the thread to fill the bobbin evenly.